Hey YouTube, this is Rob, and today I wanted to do a very quick video about my language learning experiences before I begin making my Spanish language series videos, which will be probably coming out either this weekend or next week sometime. Anyways, I've always been interested in learning languages. Even as a kid, I grew up speaking English, and I never really thought about it until I went to a Mexican restaurant one time when I was maybe about 10 years old, and I heard everybody speaking a different language. Obviously, they were speaking Spanish. I didn't know that at the time. Or maybe I did. I don't remember. But it amazed me how people could make these different sounds with their voice. How they can create different puffs of air with their voice that has all these different meanings to all these different people. My first, well, I started learning languages when I was 7. I signed up for a summer French class, which was extremely basic, and I don't remember any of it at all. So I don't tend to count that as part of my language learning experience. But the first time that I really started to study a language was my freshman year in high school. I started off studying Latin, and I chose Latin because I felt that it would give me the best background in language, particularly the Romance languages, and I felt that it would help me the most for my SATs and going to college and things like that. So I took 2 years of Latin, and I would highly recommend that anybody who is interested in learning any of the Romance languages, Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, Romanian, start off with Latin, especially if you plan on studying more than one Romance language, because all of the Romance languages derive from Latin. And you might say, well, I'm not going to study Latin. Nobody has spoken Latin for 2,000 years. True, not many people know Latin anymore, and certainly nobody speaks it, but a knowledge of Latin will give you a good working base for the Romance languages, and particularly if you're interested in complex linguistic study or anything really going beyond the beginning level of linguistic study. Latin would be highly beneficial if you're going into the law profession or if you're going into the medical field. Latin is going to be very useful for you. Anyway, after I took 1 year of Latin, I didn't want to stop Latin, but I wanted to study a language that I felt I would use. So, in my sophomore year of high school, I doubled up on my languages. I took a second year of Latin, and I also took my first year of Spanish. And I very quickly got bored with the Latin. It got very difficult in a hurry. I couldn't speak it. I could barely read it. I could barely write it. I couldn't really understand it. I felt that I knew enough to give me the background that I needed for further linguistic study. So, after completing my sophomore year, I went on ahead and took Spanish my junior and my senior years. I never really got much opportunity to speak Spanish, and for the most part, I stopped studying it after I graduated from high school. I didn't think I needed any kind of language study in college, but as it turned out, I needed 2 semesters of language study, or I could take a Spanish test to determine whether or not I knew enough to test out of Spanish. But rather than do that, I decided to challenge myself and study Russian. So I took 2 semesters of Russian, and I have a very basic knowledge of the language. I can understand people on a very limited level. I can speak it on an extremely limited level. I can read it somewhat. I mean, I can read the Russian writing, no problem. It's just understanding what I'm reading. is the issue. And I can write Russian as well. So after studying Russian for 2 years, for 2 semesters, excuse me, I've decided that I want to continue studying languages. So for about the last 4 or 5 months or so, I've been focusing primarily on reviewing my Spanish and just trying to get my Spanish back, and I've learned a lot more on my own. I think I've learned more on my own in the last 4 months than I did in 3 years of high school. And I've started talking to people in Spanish and having conversations with them to help me practice. I would really like to study several Germanic languages that are related to English. I would like to learn German, I would like to learn Dutch, I would like to learn Icelandic, and I would like to learn a Scandinavian language, either Norwegian or Sweden. I think right now I'm leaning a little bit more towards Norwegian, but I'm not sure. And I would also like to learn Italian because my father's family is from Italy. And in particular, I would like to learn French because, as I mentioned in a previous video, I plan on immigrating to Canada within the next few years, and a knowledge of French would be definitely beneficial. After I learn some of these languages, I would really like to study Arabic. I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's the writing style or just the cultural differences between the United States and the Arab world. Maybe just a better understanding of their culture might drive me to study their language. I'm not sure. I would like to learn Hindi because a lot of people speak it, and it's such a I guess you could say displaced Indo-European language. I would like to see how that compares to some other Indo-European languages. I would like to learn Chinese one day because a lot of people speak it. Japanese, Korean. I can read Korean, but I can't understand it. I can't speak it. All I can do is basically read the characters. I can put a sound with a character, and that's about it. And from there, whatever I have time to study or interest in from there, I'll go from there and see what I can do. So that's my history of language learning and my plans for the future. I plan on going into French pretty hardcore here soon, and I will be posting a long series of Spanish instructional videos for those who wish to learn Spanish and who don't want to go to college and pay for it, or just someone who wants a grammar review of Spanish. I'll be making videos on that fairly shortly. So, thanks for watching, and I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving, and I hope everyone is getting ready for the upcoming holiday season. Thanks a lot. Bye.